house with a high-rise taste.
Addicted to the vapors of paper.
Embark in the darkest sins in the hearts of men. Every rapper that rap ain't celebrity.
You're tuned in to Two Cynics in a Pod with your hosts Gotham Green and Martin Arsenault, a weekly drop-in on a conversation between two friends of over 20 years. Yo, Martin, what's going on, brother? How's it going today?
Just another day. How about you, man?
Yeah, no, everything's all good, brother. I can't complain. Just on my way home from work right now. What are you up to?
Nice. Well, I am getting my day started. I was at the club late last night, so yeah, I was just watching a little TV, catching up on some homework for this particular pod.
Yeah, word.
And yeah, I guess we can just jump right in. And I mean, what's been really heavy on my mind that I just want to talk about for a little bit is what's going on with Mahmoud Khalil, the student organizer at Columbia who was just arrested and sent to Louisiana at an ICE detention center. Just kind of scary of where we're going with this administration. He was a permanent resident. His wife is a citizen. Apparently, both of them were arrested, and she wasn't charged, and she was let go almost immediately. But for 24 hours, the Trump administration was saying that they didn't even know where he was. They just disappeared him for a day. And then it turns out that he was in Jenna, Louisiana, and then a federal judge has blocked his deportation. So
I believe there's a trial happening right now, no?
I'm not sure. I actually haven't read the news today.
Yeah, I think actually there's a trial happening right now. If I'm not mistaken, it might be happening in New York. I could be wrong about that part of it, but I don't really know too much about it. Obviously, it's a relatively newer story. I think a lot of this kind of just happened over the last couple of days, so I'm not really sure. Maybe you could educate me a little bit. I mean, what exactly are they saying that this guy did? I mean, I know that he went to Columbia, and I know obviously being in New York that Columbia's had tons of protests, but for those out there listening, and maybe even a little bit myself, maybe just fill us in on kind of exactly what's going on, who this gentleman Mahmoud Khalil is. I know, like I said, I know a little bit, but I don't really know too much, and I kind of want to get a little bit educated, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so he was one of the student organizers of the student coalition to divest from apartheid. So basically, he was helping organize these protests on campus and these campouts on campus. And it was all peaceful protests, which is the crazy thing. So it fits under their constitutional right of freedom of speech and able to protest. But the White House is claiming that he is a pro-Hamas terrorist supporter, and they're able to label him as an enemy of the state. Which is like a Homeland Security Patriot Act law. That is it's super loose definition of what an enemy of the state is. So basically, and I mean, I've seen this coming since George Bush made these laws after 9/11, but sure. It basically gives the government the right to be like, you're an enemy of the state. Yeah. It doesn't matter why. We can imprison you.
I did hear that, there was obviously uproar about this specific situation, and people were like, he was, I guess, exercising his constitutional right to freedom of speech. But I guess, what they're saying now is that, no, it has actually nothing to do with that. That he is, I guess, anti-American foreign policy, or whatever words they use, and that's kind of what they're using against him. So I guess they said that he doesn't agree with everything they're saying, so they have the ability to do this, which is a little bit scary. And again, fully admitting that I don't know all of the facts, but if you don't like the way I think about some of the things you think about, I don't know if you should be able to ruin my life.
Yeah, basically they're saying they're saying that he is anti-Semitic, which isn't true because he is working with Jewish students that are also protesting the occupation of Palestine and the West Bank and Gaza. So it's just really scary that he was not, he's a Palestinian, and he is here legally on a green card, married to
Syrian. I believe he's Syrian, no?
He might be Syrian.
Yeah. Because I heard like they were like, well, you could deport them, but where are you going to send them back to? I'm like, I don't know, wacky stuff.
Well, I
that's
mean,
going
it
on.
doesn't matter. I mean, they sent
Correct.
they sent some Indian illegal immigrants to like Guatemala.
Yeah. Look, I feel like their whole mentality is like, let's just get them out of here. We don't really care where they go, which is also sick and sad. Let me ask you this question. related to Mahmoud Khalil. Does it seem like this administration, it's almost like they come up with an idea, but then they don't know how to maybe get it through. And so they just kind of, at that point, they're throwing spaghetti noodles at a wall, seeing what sticks. So it's like, well, he didn't really go against, freedom of speech. Well, no, we just don't like the way he thinks. It's like, it seems like this is happening with this group a lot, right? Like the original idea was this. And then when there's uproar, they're like, no, the real reason was this. And like, same type of thing with the tariffs and all that stuff. It just seems like these guys kind of create ideas or reasons on the fly. Are you getting that also? Am I kind of like crazy for thinking that?
Oh, absolutely. I think they act incredibly rash, and then they are like, we'll deal with the fallout later. It's like shoot first, ask questions later,
Yeah. It's ask for forgiveness, not ask for permission sort of thing, right? For lack of a better metaphor, even though you just used a better metaphor.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because this is people's lives we're talking about. I mean, they've even, it's like Rubio made deals with a couple Latin American countries to even deport legal U.S. citizens that are prisoners to exchange them to prisons in other countries, which is insane. I mean, they haven't, it's not documented that they've done that yet, but it's crazy that they're preparing to send American citizens that are prisoners to third world countries that have far worse prison conditions.
Right. There's that Supermax in Ecuador, right? Like the craziest prison in Ecuador or whatever, where they have like all the MS-13 guys, and they said that they're willing to take a lot of these prisoners and stuff like this. Yeah, it's wild, dude. I mean, look, the prison business is absolutely that, right? It's a business, and a lot of these prison companies or companies that work with these prisons are publicly traded or privately invested in. And I mean, if we don't think that our government is investing in these type of individuals in our government, I mean, like actual individual people are investing in these prison companies and things of that nature, we are out of our minds to think that they're not. Just the same way that they, invest in and share profits in, war machine companies that put out artillery and, all these type of things, private, forces like BlackRock and things of that nature, where it's like, private militia groups that are being funded by American citizens and government officials and all that kind of stuff. So the collusion is definitely heavy. I think that's pretty evident, or the lack of evidence proves that it's pretty clear that it's happening. And I mean, look, I guess guys like Mahmoud Khalil and others like him are going to continue to get swept up in this type of thing. But I guess I would also ask, like, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. So are we really surprised? Like, I mean, you mentioned that you've been preparing for this, since these kind of laws started to get introduced.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're paying attention, this shouldn't, right? Are you with that same opinion? Like, if you're paying attention, this shouldn't surprise you, right?
I mean, it shouldn't surprise you maybe, but it should shock you that they're putting it into motion finally. It's just like, I've been waiting for an administration to go through with this. I mean, they already have with Guantanamo Bay with the prisoners post 9/11. Like a lot of those guys were held without trial. They were just sent there. Some of them are presumably innocent. So they have done it, but this is important because it means that they can do it to anyone, including a U.S. citizen now.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's a permanent resident, but still.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like we're gonna see some activists get locked up as political prisoners and maybe disappeared, or who even knows. It's just it's just a really scary time right now for anyone that's speaking out, and I mean against the apartheid state that's going on over there, and then they're gonna reframe that as you're pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic. So I don't know. We're just gonna have to see where it goes, really.
Yeah, the framing of it is, obviously a separate thing, and I guess whoever has the loudest voice is gonna be able to tell the story of whatever they want. But yeah, it's scary. I mean, if this is what they're doing and this is public knowledge, the thing that scares me the most is like, what are they doing that we're not hearing about, right? Because, and again, that doesn't have anything to do with, again, my part of it. What I'm saying is like, they give us information that they want us to know. Clearly, there's a lot of stuff happening that they're keeping under wraps and they don't want us to know, which is probably way more egregious. And I don't think that that's maybe a party thing. I think that that's just a U.S. government thing. And so, that scares me is like, yo, what is happening that we're not hearing about? What about all the Mahmoud Khalils that they're not talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. And look, I'm also of the belief that there's bad eggs in every group, right? And so there's bad white people, there's bad black people, there's bad brown people, there's bad purple people, there's bad green people, yellow people, whatever it may be. And no one group is like absolved from that. And so there are bad eggs in groups. And I do feel like as a person who born in America, lives in New York, and New York has, gotten back to a time where we weren't really having that great of a time. I mean, the city got cleaned up for a long time and now it's kind of devolving. But, if you're really doing something wrong or plotting something that's going to be harmful and this and that, yeah, you should be taken out of here. But I do believe in a process, and I do believe that, you should have that process and you should get your shot at maybe a trial or whatever you want to do, a tribunal. You know what I mean? But if you need to be taken out of here, they need to get you out of here. But that's not to say that every brown person needs to be removed or every, colored person needs to be removed or every foreign person needs to be removed. I'm a child of two immigrants that, worked their ass off to get to this country and do things the right way and go through the path of citizenship and all that stuff. And I mean, I was born in Queens, but I'm Indian and my parents are immigrants. My father's dead, but my mom is still alive, and I'm nervous for people like her. You know what I mean? It's scary.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm even you and another one of my best friends are both first generation, whose parents came here from other countries, and you guys basically have birthright citizenship. And what's scary to me is this administration is talking about removing that.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean? I mean, are they going to send my friend Andrew back to Jamaica? I mean, send him to Jamaica, he has family there or whatever, but like he's never lived there. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You've been to India a ton of times and you have
Many
family
times.
there, but like you've never lived there. Like that's crazy to think that you could be like
Correct.
Free Palestine and they could be like, we don't like that because you have a lot of people watching that, or something blows up on social media or something. And they just don't like that. And they're like, well, we're sending you to India. And
yeah,
you're like,
look,
wait, what? We're revoking your citizenship as a birthright citizen.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that needs to be, paid attention to, and it's something that shouldn't be ignored. I don't let myself, live in constant fear that something bad is going to happen or that, a boogeyman's going to come in at night and scoop me up and take me out of here. But that definitely has become more of a thought process than maybe it used to be. Another thing that is a situation is obviously America and India have good relations right now. And I mean, they're always working on deals and things of that nature. And clearly, India's neighbor is a threat to the rest of the world. And so obviously right now we're in good terms, but that could change. And it could go left. And if it goes left between the US and India, then this thing becomes a little bit more real to me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's something that I'm definitely paying attention to. And like I told you off the pod, it's something that I fully admit that I don't have all of the knowledge on, but I want to learn and I want to hear more. And I also want to hear from different viewpoints on it, right? I mean, like, ultimately, you're a person whose parents were born in this country. You're from Louisiana. You're white. You're prideful of where you come from. It's interesting because most people that are probably in your same demographic don't care as much. And so I feel lucky that I have a person that actually does care and they research it. And so me who not everybody has a you, but I have a you. So when there's things that I want to know about, I know that you're paying attention to it. So you're typically my first stop to kind of be like, yo, what's going on with this? Like, what are the real details here? And again, the sad thing about that is I don't know if anybody has the real details. I don't know if they'll ever give us the real details. And the saddest and the scariest thing about this dude is like, right now Mahmoud Khalil is on the tip of everybody's tongue. But how long will that last before his name just completely dissolves into history, right? Because we don't continue to talk about these people and things of that nature. So that's sad as well, until the next thing that comes and maybe everybody forget about this, and then this guy's going to just kind of be left on his own.
I mean, he was a pretty big part of the Columbia movement, so I don't think it's just going to be able to be swept under the rug. I mean, the media may be able to do that, but I don't think a lot of activists...
No, but what I'm saying is, like, let's say he gets deported, right? How long do we continue to fight, or how long do you continue to keep his name in the forefront? It doesn't last forever, and so that's all I'm saying is that it's sad, right? We have a tendency here to forget because as long as it's not directly affecting us, we don't care. Right now, this is directly affecting American citizens or what have you. So they care. I'm just saddened by the fact that, like, eventually this guy will kind of become a little bit more obscure, and then we'll forget. And then when the next thing like this happens, it's like as if we're starting all over and we don't kind of remember what happened, and it'll be like all over again. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when will we learn?
I mean, we'll learn when it gets really bad, because he's just the first of many. Even the Speaker of the House, who's also from Louisiana, actually, from where I'm from. Yeah, like, even he said this is the first of many. So we're going to see this keep happening, and I believe that we're going to see it happen with American citizens also. This is just a warning, basically.
Yo, I don't mean to make a joke, but am I the only person that, when they first announced that the new Speaker of the House was going to be a guy named Mike Johnson, I thought it was going to be a black guy? Because Mike Johnson is a super black name. Like, you don't meet many white people named Mike Johnson. And so, interesting. But yeah, I mean, Louisiana, right? So, kind of, that's where this kid is.
There's a lot of Mike Johnsons that are black is because of slavery, and that name,
that makes sense.
That family just owned a ton of slaves, just like Jefferson or Washington.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So, you ever meet a black guy with an Irish last name? It's a wild thing.
Yeah, I mean, but anyways,
circling back,
I mean, what this administration has done is clearly illegal. This guy has no record, no criminal record. He has no record of violent protest.
Well, that brings up a good point.
He just
Who
was
decides what's
petitioning
illegal?
to Colombia to divest from Israel.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, what you said was, it's not illegal, and I brought up an interesting question is, in this day and age, in this country, who decides what's illegal? Don't they seem to be just changing that however they want, and with the stroke of a pen, things that were universally accepted for 150. So they're going to make it. They're going to make it work for them.
It's not laws. It's privileges, right? So it's like they can be like freedom of speech. But as soon as someone else is practicing freedom of speech that they don't like, they can just They can just disappear them now.
Yep. He doesn't agree with our foreign policy, so get him out of here. But like, you're allowed to not agree, right? Isn't that what this country was?
Because I mean, if this was the case, then like, why aren't we deporting the January 6th people? Like,
no, those are good people. Those are good people. Hey, you leave QAnon shaman alone, all right? The guy couldn't eat when he was in jail because he's vegan. Give him a break. His mom was sad for him.
He did fine, apparently.
You QAnon shaman. How can you wear these people, animal pelts?
I can't even. Yeah, but I mean, these people.
And then tell me you're
these people were violent, making threats. I mean, there's plenty of charges against these people that are legitimate and caught on film, and some of them even their own cameras and social media. And
but like Hunter Biden, no more charges, brother.
I mean, that's another thing. I mean, that's like, to me, it's like a one-party system, anyways. So.
I've always thought that.
Like, I mean, then that just it reaffirms my point of it being privilege and not laws. Like,
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more, dude. Your financial status dictates what you're allowed to get away with in this country, and I think that's never going to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so it's crazy, and that's how it's always been, and that's how this country's going to be. I mean, we're a business. America is a business, and the better you do in business, the more freedoms you get.
It's true. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And I mean, you know, like I work part-time for a political nonprofit prison radio. So we work with a lot of political prisoners.
So
shout out to Prison Radio. Just really big on my radar right now. And we can keep it moving to more fun things to talk about. I just don't want to be one of those people that's on a podcast and just only talks about entertainment. And
totally understand.
If people know me and people are listening, they're gonna be like, you know, eventually like, well, this isn't the Martin that I know. So where is his activist self? Like, he doesn't know shit about pop culture really. So and some of the stuff we're gonna talk about, I do, but like.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you. No, I'm with you, right? Like I said, shout out to Prison Radio, and yes, the point of this podcast is to drop people into our regular conversation, and our regular conversation touches on everything that's happening in and around our lives. So that you're gonna get this, but you're also gonna get Martin trying to be very serious, and me being myself and making a stupid joke in the moment. But I'm very in tune. I care about what's happening. And I will also be paying attention to this story just to kind of see where this goes. But with that being said, I also do think you downplay your knowledge of pop culture just a slight bit. I'd say you have maybe like 1% knowledge, and I think maybe you have like 3 to 5% knowledge, so just a slight bit. But
no, I think I probably have more knowledge than that. I'm just like not like celebrity gossip. I don't care.
You don't care. Yeah, you don't care. It's okay to say it, brother. It's okay. You're allowed to not care. There's a lot of things that I don't care about, and we'll get to some of those things later on. But yeah, dude, like, what else did we have to chat about today?
Well, since you were talking about people telling stupid jokes, that brings us to our next topic, which is the Andrew Schultz special.
I didn't say stupid jokes, just FYI. That was Martin.
No, you definitely did. Because as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, this is a great segue to talk about Andrew Schultz.
I didn't say Andrew Schultz was making stupid jokes. You are you're implying that. However, yes, Andrew Schultz put a special out on Netflix called Life. And I did tell you to watch it. I don't know if you watched it yet. The reason I told you to watch it, I know you're not the biggest Schultz fan, but I thought it was a very well done special. Here's the thing. The special is basically the story about how him and his wife tried to conceive, and they had trouble for a long time, and they ended up finally going through IVF and successfully having a kid. And from all accounts, that kid is doing phenomenal right now, and shout out to her and his wife and himself for that. My fiance and I, you guys know I'm getting married in June. We have had discussions about children, and we both want children, and you know, we're on the older side of the age. And so we've had discussions where, look, we might have to start talking to doctors and stuff like that about it just to make sure everything is smooth and everything can work itself out. And so I felt a little bit of a connection to want to watch this special. And I'm not going to lie to you, dude. Some of these jokes, some of these parts of this special had both me and my girl rolling on the floor laughing, ROFLIRL. You know what I'm saying? Like, in real life, we were dying laughing. Like, I haven't heard her laugh this loud at any of my stand-up shows. So, you know, clearly he had her laughing. But have you watched it?
So I watched the first half hour of it today.
Got it. What'd you think?
I mean...
And be honest with me.
Let me preface it with this. Like, some people may not know that I worked at the Hollywood Improv as the lead tech for about 1.5 years. So that basically means that I do the sound, I do the lights, I do the video, I talk to the comics, I pay the comics, I light the comics. So all of these different things. It's basically like a stage management plus sound job.
You ran the club.
You run the show, not the club. So I would run the shows, right? And I've worked with Andrew Schultz several times at the club. But
can you tell people what years you worked there?
Yeah, so this was about 1.5 years, from 1.5 years before the pandemic until the pandemic when the club had to close.
So like 18, 19, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So all right, got it. So like 7, 8 years ago, so Schultz wasn't what he is now. So like give us that. I would like to know that.
5, 6 years ago, dude. But
pardon me, I'm not good at math.
Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, he wasn't as big as he is now, but he was making a lot of noise. Like he had a lot of followers. He had a podcast that was doing okay. But his comedy has definitely shifted. Back then, it was a little more political, a little more left leaning, a little more critical thought was involved in his bits. Where I feel like just the first half hour of the special, it's just like dick and fart jokes now, and he's just appealing to like. I mean, maybe it gets better after a half hour because I literally stopped watching it when you called. But
got it.
Like I was hard pressed to find one laugh.
Yeah, no. So
from
it
the
does.
beginning.
I mean,
like he starts out like with bad gay jokes that come off homophobic to me, like talking about OBGYN. It is literally like caveman comedy. Like you don't even you don't know anything about women's reproduction.
Well, so here's the thing, dude. So, look, here's what I'll say, right? And what's funny to me is that part of it I actually did chuckle at because my mother was an OBGYN at a public hospital, right? So, like, my mother saw the worst of the worst. But I've known a lot about, women and reproduction and all that stuff since I was a child. But you know what I found out, dude? Most men don't really know a fucking thing about it. And so maybe he's playing up the ignorance, but I don't think he knew too much about it. Now, everybody knows what the fuck OBGYN stands for. So, yes, clearly he was reaching on that. But I hear you, dude. The beginning of it is a little bit slow, and he's definitely very bro-y, very much going for that, like you said, caveman humor, which, look, has led him to selling out arenas. So while he maybe didn't set out on that original path, I mean, as you start to get bigger and bigger and bigger, you start to reach towards what's going to get you even bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it makes sense that he kind of transitioned to that side because that side is kind of what's popular these days. But, I would say to you, watch the last half of it. We don't ever have to talk about it again on the podcast, but I would like to get your idea on, once you watch the end of it, just you and I talking privately, what you really thought about it. But, Schultz, obviously he's got the podcast Flagrant with Akash Singh. So, he's can't be racist. He's got Indian friends. You know what I mean? He's one of those type of guys.
I mean, but, I hate that trope. It's just like I'm
I
married
agree.
to a black woman. How could I be racist? It's like
correct.
Like chill. Like
correct. Yeah. And I love it. I use that thing all the time because that's everybody's first go-to thing. And I'm like, well, I feel like you're more racist if that's the first thing you say. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, the second part after the initial OBGYN jokes, he's talking about like circumcision and how uncircumcised dicks are weird, and it's just like that is repeating old right-wing trope. And if you know anything about the history of American circumcision, it's fucked up. And it's and honestly, I am anti-circumcision. I'm circumcised, but I wish I wasn't. Like, I don't think men should be circumcised. I think there's a lot of American Christian nationalist myth surrounding circumcisions. And if I ever do have a son, I'm not going to submit them to that abuse as soon as they're born. And to me, it is mutilation and abuse. It's no different than female circumcision in some Middle Eastern cultures. I believe that it's brutal. I believe it's abuse, and I don't think it's funny, and it just didn't make me laugh, and I'm just like, it just sounds like some super bro-y, low-hanging fruit comedy for me, and it didn't reflect the comedy of Andrew Schultz when I was working at the Improv, because I thought he was really funny and clever and smart, and now I'm like, oh, well, you're clearly taking the easy route and going for this like right-wing-ish, low-hanging fruit stuff. I mean, he's buddies with Rogan and everything, which he was before too, because I'm pretty sure that he'd opened for Rogan a couple times, because we did Rogan 3 or 4 times a week at the Improv. So I think that's pretty much when I worked with him. But a lot of these guys like have turned into kind of these right-wing pundits. And I mean, even Rogan has, like, when I first met Joe and was working with him, I didn't love his bits, but I did I was totally unfamiliar with the podcast. I remember when they hired me, but before they hired me, they were like, do you know who Joe Rogan is? And I said, the guy from Fear Factor, and they were like 100%. Cracking up laughing. And I think that's one of the reasons they hired me, because a lot of the time they get comics trying to get jobs there and they just want to get on the gravy train and start meeting people and get put on and stuff. But I was like totally unaware that he had a popular podcast then, and it wasn't as big as now, but it was still really big, and he was the big seller at the Improv. And they just liked that I didn't know who he was, and I didn't really know who a lot of comics were, to be honest. Yeah,
see, there you go. Your lack of knowledge of pop culture helped you out there. See, it works out in your favor.
Absolutely. But
look, I'm with you, bro.
Speaking just real quick to finish this point, like Rogan used to have a lot of like right and left people and getting opinions from all sides, and since he's moved to Texas and got this deal with Spotify and everything. He's gone far more right. He's always like in the last month or so, he's had 4 different billionaires on his show. And when he just had Elon Musk on, they were just talking about Social Security, getting all these facts wrong, not getting fact checked. And Rogan's like, oh yeah, oh, and they just sound like idiots. They just sound like high bros, and that is where a lot of this white comedy is leaning, and I feel like Andrew Schultz isn't fully there, but he is going for that low-hanging dick and fart bro joke stuff, which is just not very clever to me, and it just doesn't. I'll finish it up so I can tell you what I think, but it just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, dude. And look, I anybody that's known me for a very long time knows that I've never been a fan. I mean, I'm talking about since I was a kid. I've never been a fan of fart jokes, shit jokes, dick jokes, this, that. So I could leave that every single time. One thing I will say to you, though, is, you've been out of the comedy club for quite some time, and I've been in the comedy club now for quite some time. And there are a lot more bro-y dudes than there are the other side, right? And so I see it, and I see these kids, even on a younger level, smaller level, because I'm in the clubs. I'm not in arenas, and I'm not in theaters or anything like that. But I see it, dude, and I see those type of guys getting many more opportunities than the other side. Or, me, I'm the type of person, like, and I've done this with my rap. When I used rap, when we were putting out rap music, when I do comedy, when I speak in private to people, when I'm with my girl, whatever. I am about reality, right? So people used to ask us all the time, what kind of music do you make? And I would tell them, well, it's like reality rap. Because if I didn't live it or I don't know somebody who lived it, I'm not going to talk about it, right? And so even with my comedy is rooted in my own experiences or my direct line of people's experiences. A lot of guys that are getting booked or getting bigger are not about that. They're only making those bro-y jokes, those, for lack of a better word, like, chauvinistic or misogynistic type jokes and stuff like that. And it doesn't necessarily resonate to me, but it is working for a lot of these guys. And I mean, a lot of them have changed how they are or have slid down that side, like you said. And we could go through a list of guys, and you could be like, oh yeah, when he first started, he was like this, and now he's like this. And so I imagine that's happening all over the place. I can promise you that I will never, ever, ever do that. I will always maintain who I am, and maybe that will never get me to the next stratosphere, but I'm okay with that, dude. I'd rather be able to sleep at night knowing I was always myself than knowing that I had to change up just to try to make a buck. So.
I mean, yeah, just because it's working doesn't mean it's right, and it's just
Correct.
For me, it's not like, I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's selling out particularly, because my definition, selling out can mean a plethora of things, but I think that selling out is doing something that you don't agree with for money. And so who knows, he might agree with some of this stuff. I mean, people flip-flop with politics all the time because they're really just apathetic to it and they don't care, and that really the end game is getting rich or whatever. And that's,
yeah, well, that also changes people, right? Like people think, they say, money changes you, and that's true on a level, and it changes the people around you. But I think once you get into different tax brackets, you start hanging around people in different tax brackets. So you're hearing different conversations, and you're being manipulated, for lack of a better word, or brainwashed into believing some of those conversations that you're now hearing because you've entered a new tax bracket, not because you've entered a new mentality or you've changed your life or your thoughts. It's kind of like you're just being fed these things because these are the circles you're in now. So this is kind of what you believe in, but it's not really what you believe in. It's just what you're beat up with all the time. So you just start to almost parrot it. And then before you know it, not only yourself, but other people are looking at you like, who is this guy? You know? And so I think that hurts a lot of people as well.
Absolutely.
But, you know, you watch it again, you don't have to rush to it, but if you ever do get around to finishing it, just let me know and we can chat about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
but I will say, let me just put a ball.
And like his haircut annoys me lately. He looks like Heinrich. He looks like Heinrich Himmler and Josef Mengele had a baby, and it's just like, and birthed this guy. And I was actually looking at I was like, I don't think Josef Mengele died until like 80 or something. I looked it up. He's died in 79, and I was like, oh shit, he might be his illegitimate kid. And then I'm like, oh shit, no, he was. Schultz was born in 83, so
no,
there goes my
conspiracy
theory of him being a Nazi kid.
He also looks like, he dresses like the sidekick from The Honeymooners. I can't remember the guy's name now, but it'll come to me. But he dresses like that, and that style bothers the hell out of me. I'll put a bow on it with this. What it like when I'm watching him, when I watch that special, what he reminds me of, and I don't know if he's going for this consciously or like I said, now he's in a different tax bracket, so he's around these people. But dude, to me, a lot of his stuff sounds like a 50-50 split of Sebastian Maniscalco and Donald Trump. So when you do watch the second half of it, just listen to the way he says certain things and tell me it's not him doing a Trump impression.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we'll see. Let's see how his career goes. I mean, he's on an up trajectory.
It's like number 5 on Netflix, it said, so I'm sure it's doing well. Like he's a popular comedian, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he sells out arenas and he's doing numbers on Netflix for sure. So, I mean, from that perspective, congratulations to him.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, getting off the topic of Andrew Schultz, we are sticking on to TV for the rest of this podcast, and this is actually an exciting thing for me to think about. And the deeper I got into it, I was like, it made me reconsider. Like at first, I had what I was going to say, and then I had to reconsider. But we're going to talk about the top 5 HBO shows of all times, and this is our picks. Those are not like award-winning or acclaimed or do
it's
what?
All opinion. It's all opinions.
Yeah,
it's
totally
our opinions.
Our opinion. It's not like the top 5 numbers or anything.
Correct. Yeah, we don't work for the Emmys.
Yeah, but as I started looking it up, and I looked at a list of all HBO shows. Now, I didn't include miniseries or docuseries in mine.
Sure.
But I was like, oh my God, this show and this show and this show.
Yeah, man.
I was like, oh my God, HBO has made so many great shows throughout my lifetime.
Let me ask you this. Did you rank yours 1 through 5, or you just got top 5?
I did rank mine. Yeah, I did rank mine.
All right, so you want us to tell me what your number 5 is?
Yeah, sure. Number 5 for me is going to be 6 Feet Under.
Okay.
Do you remember that show? Did you ever watch that show?
So I watched the first season back when it first came out. Shout out to Michael C. Hall, because I'm a huge Dexter fan, but I never really stuck with it.
Huh. Interesting. That surprises me because you are such a big Dexter fan. And for me...
Yeah, but it was pre-Dexter.
Yeah, but also... You can see why they cast him to be Dexter, because he is kind of a dark character, secretive dark character. It's not as dark and as scary as the Dexter character, but it is. You can see where why he was cast for Dexter.
Got it. Okay.
It's a really great show. I mean,
how many seasons do you know? Do you know how many seasons it went off?
I think 6.
Okay, wow, yeah, so it's a commitment. So I'll commit to it. Eventually, I got a big list of shows that my girl wants to watch. So eventually, I'll definitely put 6 Feet Under on my list. 6 Feet Under, that's the family. They have the funeral home, right? But then they do, like, nefarious shit?
Yeah, kind of. It's not as nefarious as you would think, but they all have their secrets, and it's just, like, a really interesting family dynamic that deals with death every episode. And in the very first episode, the father... the patriarch of the family is killed in the first episode. And so, he's a character in the show because they all have conversations with him and he reappears. And a lot of the time, it always starts with a death, usually the death that they're intaking. And And so it always starts with the death of the next death that they're preparing for a funeral at the funeral home.
Okay, I understand.
But it's incredibly written. It's a really good plot, and it deals a lot. You and I have both dealt with a lot of death, so for me, that's where it. I recently rewatched it, and it's just it's a really well written show, really great acting. That's really
you rewatched the whole series.
I rewatched the whole thing, and I was like, "Oh, this is good as I remember it."
Awesome. That's the one thing about HBO that I will say. Like, those shows are timeless. Like, for whatever reason, they have that formula where it doesn't seem like it aged. You can watch stuff from the 90s now and be like, wow, is this new?
Yeah.
My number 5 HBO show of all time is going to be How to Make It in America.
Oh, that's a great show, too.
How to Make It in America was before its time. I do feel like if How to Make It in America came out maybe during pandemic, it would probably be one of the biggest shows HBO ever had. And I mean, I could be the only person that feels that way, but How to Make It in America to me is the street version of Entourage. Meaning, like, these kids are not there yet. They're just city kids trying to hustle, but it's about their crew and it's about them trying to, make it in the streets. And the main character is trying to launch a clothing company, a denim brand, and it's basically following their story. And it unfortunately just didn't, like I said, it was before its time, so it just didn't get enough seasons, and it just was too early. But if you go back and watch How to Make It in America now, you'll thoroughly enjoy it. So that's my number 5 of all time.
It got canceled, I think, yeah.
It got canceled after 2 seasons, I believe. 2 or 3 seasons, and then it was canceled.
Which I was shocked because I really liked that show, too. I really liked that show, too.
But I think it was like, that, as crazy as it sounds, dude, it was almost like, that was like before DIY was a thing, right? And so now that DIY is such a big thing, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry is an influencer or their brother has a clothing company, like, now it would resonate more. So it will be interesting to see if, like, one day maybe they do like a remake of that. I would love that. Or make a movie now. HBO has done that kind of stuff before. But yeah, that's my number 5. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 might come as another shock. I mean, these are my personal favorites.
That's fine.
Like I have a list of notables which you can go over after that are also great shows. But one of my favorite shows at number 4 for me is Big Love.
Okay.
Did you ever watch that?
Not a single moment.
It's about a polygamous family, a Mormon polygamous family in Salt Lake.
I'm out.
It's great. It's Bill Hicks.
Is there a single colored person in the entire show?
I'm reaching for that. I don't think so.
I'm out.
Yeah, but it's got, I mean, okay, I get that, but it's super dramatic. It's like how gangster these compounds can be on these it's like creepy how gangster these Mormon compound prophets can be. It's Bill Paxton and Chloe Sevigny, which I really love. She made her debut in one of my favorite movies, Kids.
Quality actors for sure.
There's some really great actors and actresses, but the best part about Big Love, and which a lot of HBO shows I feel like suffer from, is finales. It has one of the most amazing finales for an HBO show, and I don't want to give it away, but it is like you don't even see it coming. How they set it up. The writing, it's just one of those HBO shows that is super well written. It lived out its whole life. It didn't get canceled early. Like, the story plays out fully. And it's just it's dramatic and interesting and intense. And I remember watching it with my ex when it first came out, and we would wait every week, like more excited than Game of Thrones, because it was like when Game of Thrones was new also.
Oh, okay, got it.
But yeah, it's just a great show, and just really well written, and just like I said, amazing finale. But that's all I really have for my number 4, Big Love. What about you? Right, what's your number 4?
My number 4, which again maybe it goes a little bit against what you were talking about, but is Def Comedy Jam.
No, I feel like that. I mean, on the list I was reading, it fell under series.
Perfect. Yeah, Def Comedy Jam's probably my number 4. I mean, I have a tattoo that says laughter is life. I do stand-up comedy. I've always thought of myself as having a decent sense of humor. So I love stand-up. I love watching it. So yeah, HBO, Def Comedy Jam, man. I remember watching it as a kid, and phenomenal.
I mean, Def Comedy Jam introduced me to Dave Chappelle, to Chris Tucker.
So many. Brother.
I mean,
Tony Woods, so many guys, man.
It introduced me to so much stand-up.
You know what I mean? So all those guys, like, yeah, urban stand-up comedy, man. That is my number 4 HBO show. And I mean, I'm sure you can still watch episodes on Max. It's phenomenal. So go back and watch some old school comedy.
Yeah, actually, I'm interested to see that because it hasn't came up on my HBO, so I have to go look for that because I would like to rewatch some of those. I haven't seen that stuff since I was a teenager.
Watch it, dude. It's on Max. It's phenomenal. I'll give you my Max password. If anybody from HBO is listening, I'm not really going to give him my Max password.
I have it, but yeah, maybe one of your other friends will take you up on that.
No, fuck those people.
Well, speaking of comedy, my number 3 is one of my favorite comedy shows, and that would be Mr. Show with Bob and David.
Oh wow, okay. I wasn't expecting that. That's interesting. That I was not expecting that, dude. That's
I
funny
love
that you
sketch
said.
comedy. It is one of the best sketch comedy shows in history, in my opinion.
Is it better than In Living Color?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Stumped you right away.
It's not my number 1, so
well, I'll tell you what. If we were doing top 5 shows,
it's also I have another sketch comedy show that on my number 2 that actually I think is better.
Wow! All right, so
then
let's
that
quickly
one is
move through
probably as good as In Living Color. But yeah, Bob Odenkirk and David Cross, like that show was ahead of its time. It's wacky, it's kooky. Bob Odenkirk is an amazing writer, and
yeah, absolutely.
And before he was known as an actor, and he wrote a bunch of Simpsons episodes too. And
yes, sir.
I just really love Odenkirk, man. I don't like David Cross too, but I just think Bob Odenkirk was really carrying that show.
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk is phenomenal. Great actor. Just don't necessarily love Better Call Saul because his name was not Saul the entire series, but that's neither here nor there. My number 3 HBO show is Entourage.
Okay. I never watched it.
Entourage came out when I was in my 20s, and it's basically just a kid from Queens who becomes an actor, and him and his 3 homies, one half brother and 2 homies go to LA. And I mean, it is literally just dudes in their 20s partying in Hollywood. And I mean, beautiful women, nice cars, nice houses. And I mean, as crazy as this sounds, we were in LA, me and you, living in LA in the entertainment industry. And so while we weren't on the same level as Vincent Chase, who's the main character from Entourage, it was very interesting to watch that and then to have, kind of live some of that life. I mean, we did Maxim parties and we did, all sorts of parties, you and I, in Hyde Lounge and all the spots that they show in these places and Sunset and yada, 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 and Hollywood Boulevard and all. But it's basically, Mark Wahlberg created the show, and it's loosely based on his life getting to Hollywood. And so, I mean, it's just him and just this kid and his homies wiling out, and a lot of good characters in it. Turtle, Johnny Drama, et cetera, et cetera. So Entourage, and they did a movie to kind of cap the series off, which wasn't the best, but it was all right. But you should watch it, dude. It's funny and it's just showy, but the characters are interesting. HBO does great with even not phenomenal shows. They do a lot of good character development.
Truly.
And so you start to really like these characters, even though maybe they're douchebags or whatever it may be. So yeah, my number 3 show is Entourage.
Yeah, and I've never seen it, but I do have a funny story about Adrian Grenier. Is that his name?
Yeah, Grenier, I think is how you pronounce it. Grenier.
So my roommate at one point in New Orleans had this group called Sex Party, and it was just this hipster beat thing. I think you may have met them. We did South by Southwest, and they were there.
I met them. I remember them.
Yeah, so they were randomly approached by his management because he was shooting a sex documentary.
Yep.
And he wanted to include them in the documentary. And I don't even know if this ever came out or anything, but
I believe it did.
They did these. They did a party at South by Southwest, and he invited them, and they got me, and was it you or if someone else came with me? I can't remember.
I think it was me, bud. I think it was me.
Yeah, and we were just like, this dude is so. We met him, and he was really nice. He bought us drinks, but he was
a little bit weird.
A strange guy.
I'd say we just leave it out. He was a little bit weird.
I mean, yeah, like they interviewed them naked in a hot tub together, like 3 dudes naked in a hot tub, and I was like, this is just sus, man. I don't know, like, I was like, is this guy actually making a movie? It was. I
was ready to just leave it at he's weird, but all right, now that you want to take it there, I don't really know if his plan was to make a movie or the type of movie that we're thinking about, but hey, it went. We were there. We saw, and we got the fuck out of there, if I'm not mistaken.
We did. I think we had the drink, and we're like, we're out of here. It was not
nice
our
to meet
crowd.
you, buddy. Good luck. Yeah, nice to meet you. Good luck with your career. Peace out.
Yeah, it was not our crowd.
So, I mean, we
haven't heard much from him since.
We should just one day do an episode on all of our South by Southwest experiences, but because it's happening right now also, which is why it's on my mind. But we've had some funny, and like weird and random experiences just walking the streets of Austin during South by Southwest. Forget about the fact that we were watching a Slaughterhouse show and Kanye West came out and destroyed back when Kanye was normal-ish. Running into Jet Life, Currency's people over there, Rex, and my homies that I bought from New York one year, Whiteout, and his manager and all that. And we've had some really fun South by Southwest experiences. But circling back, what's your number 2? Tell me this sketch show.
All right, so for me, number 2 was kind of a tie because both of these series aired in other countries, but they only aired in the U.S. on HBO.
Okay.
And we talked about this too, but when we were doing pre-production on the show. But so Ali G, its first season exclusively aired on Channel 4 in the UK.
Booyakasha.
But yeah, and I fucking love that show, and whatever he's turned into these days, I'm not the biggest fan anymore, but like back then that show was hilarious to me. So the season 2 and 3 were on HBO exclusively.
Ali G was phenomenal.
I mean, just ahead of his time, and just talking about trolling people, like he was the king of it. Like Sacha Baron Cohen is just like a comic genius back then, in my opinion.
Yeah, he went a little bit, too far with whatever he's up to these days. But I mean, genius and revolutionized, certain things. And I mean, Ali G is held in high regard in my mind. So I would definitely give that an honorable mention. I think that's a good pick. Number 2,
for me, that tied with another one, since it also aired originally in Canada on CBC, is The Kids in the Hall.
Yeah,
which is one of my favorites. One of my favorite comedy shows, sketch comedy shows. So your number 2 is a tie. Yeah, Kids in the Hall, Ali G, because because they kind of aired in other countries, but they exclusively aired in the U.S. on HBO, and that's how I found out about The Kids in the Hall, was on HBO as a kid. And I have all the DVDs of all the seasons still, and it's something I go back to and watch religiously. And it's one like that, and Living Color are probably my 2 favorite sketch comedy shows.
So I feel like you might have answered the question, but if I had to ask you, if you could only pick one or the other, meaning you could only have one and the other one doesn't even exist, you're picking Kids in the Hall, yes?
Over what?
Ali G.
Yeah, I think so. Just for the nostalgia factor.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you go back to it and you watch it all the time. So that makes sense. All right, I'll give you that tie.
I have the Ali G DVDs too.
Same.
I watch them all the time too, but if I was like having to pick, and what are we watching tonight, and had to pick, I would probably go for Kids in the Hall.
Understood totally. So
yeah,
that's cool. I like that. My number 2. It's funny, man, because it's funny because I know I got Def Comedy Jam on there, but I mean all these shows that I've said so far have comedic elements, but I don't necessarily think of HBO as the place for comedy. And most, if not all of your shows that you've picked so far, well, half of them so far have been comedy. And that's interesting to me because I wouldn't go that route. So my number 2 favorite HBO show of all time is The Sopranos.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I mean, do
great
I
show.
even need to give a reason why? I mean, I'm from New York, so I sound like I should be on the show. I grew up with nothing but Italians in Long Island, New York. Sopranos is just so well done and just such a great, great series. And it is, as crazy as this sounds, I mean, it is very real. I don't need to get into why I know that. Just understand that I'm telling you that it's very real. So that's my number 2 show, Sopranos. And I mean, I know that that's rated as like one of the top 5 shows of all time across the board for a lot of people and a lot of publications. So I feel comfortable knowing that I also love a show that everybody else loves. But yeah, shout out to James Gandolfini, man. What a performance from that guy for that show. And I mean, as sad as it is, it ruined his life. But yeah, Sopranos, number 2, man. So now here we are. What is your number 1 all-time favorite HBO?
I have a strong feeling we have the same number 1. I just have a really strong feeling we have the same number 1. And for me, it's The Wire.
Without a doubt, dude.
What about you?
The Wire is my favorite show of all time. Forget about HBO.
It is one of the greatest shows ever made, I believe.
I think it's the best television show ever made. I'm looking dead in the camera when I say that.
Yeah, honestly.
Best television show ever made.
Yeah, honestly, because I mean, it's hands down one of the best cop shows. Like, there's nothing, you're not going to top that. But
not
just
at all.
writing, acting, character development, continuity.
Continuity, the thread, man, the thread. You know what the best part about The Wire is talking about The Wire to people that maybe haven't seen it or kind of gave up on it after the first season. Because what happens is, if you know The Wire, you know that the first season is based in the hood in Baltimore. The second season is based on the docks in Baltimore. People loosely don't think, you would think like, oh, what's the connection? Why would they go from a gangster show to the docks? But if you continue through, you see why everything connects together, because you can't have street drug dealers. The drugs ain't being imported somehow. And at some point, they got to come in through the docks or through the air or whatever it may be. So, yeah, the fact that they have the thread. And then another thing I love is that the kids that you see in season 4 are the kids of the gangsters from season 1, right? Which I think is phenomenal. I'm an Avon Barksdale guy. I'm team Avon all day. Fuck Marlowe. Fuck Stringer and all that. And Michael K. Williams, man. Michael K. Williams, rest in peace. I don't know if you're going to find a better character in a TV show than Omar Little from The Wire. Phenomenal performance by this gentleman. He played a gay stick-up kid in the hood that everybody was scared of. So, bonkers performance, bonkers job from him. And I mean, Michael K. Williams' story, if you know his story, is phenomenal. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but I'll give you one story that I heard. And I met Michael K. Williams. He was shooting a movie in Brooklyn at a building that I work at, and couldn't have been a nicer guy. But Michael K. Williams, he's told the story. When he was alive, he used to tell the story. When he was on The Wire, I believe like first season, second season, he was living in New York, and he was basically commuting. But he also was homeless at a certain point. And these two brothers took him in and basically took care of him, cleaned him up. And because of that, he was able to continue to do The Wire and do all that. And so he never forgot those guys. He always showed them love. And I just think that that's such a amazing thing. But yeah, dude, The Wire. I think we both knew that was going to be the number one show for both of us. And if you've ever watched it and you don't like it, I would like to know why.
Yeah, well, for me, it was late. I didn't watch The Wire fully until last year. And it was a show that took me a little bit to get into. Like, I remember trying to watch it years ago, and I just couldn't get into it the first episode. And then I tried again, and I was like, still I'm not. And then I was like, you were like, man, you got to commit to it. It's great. Like, trust me on this. And then once I got past the third or fourth episode, I couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah, it's fucking phenomenal, dude.
Yeah, it's like one of the most real cop shows, I think. You know, a lot of even Law and Order can be so cheesy. But there's no like technology that they're not using. It shows you how egocentric investigations are with different levels of the chain of command and
100%.
politics, and it is the most real police show I think that's ever been done, and it's wonderful. And you know, they greenlit anything David Simon was doing for a while, and they ended up, you know, one of the shows that's not on my notables or near my top 5 or even top 30 would be Treme, and it was just a big steaming pile of shit, which is sad because it was supposed to really represent New Orleans after Katrina and the music scene, and it just falls flat. It was just bad.
Which is just so unfortunate, right?
It is, because I expected such huge things of it, even though I hadn't watched The Wire. I mean, I knew of it. I knew you were into it, and it was just so critically acclaimed that I think everyone in New Orleans and from New Orleans and had any attachment to Louisiana or Louisiana music was excited about this show, and it just turned out to be the biggest flop. It was so bad.
Yeah, unfortunate, man, because it did have the potential to be something special. And, you know, I don't know. I guess I would hope that one day maybe somebody tries to do something more representative of that scene and that city and that circle. I doubt it, but, you know, it would be nice. But, yeah, that thing had the potential to be phenomenal, and it really did brick. But that happens.
You know, some of my other runners-ups are I think, like, some people that know me would be like, what? Game of Thrones wasn't on your top 5? And I'm going to tell you the reason why, because if you do know me well and we have ever talked about film or TV, like, I'm big on continuity. And with Game of Thrones, what ruined it for me was not the finale. Actually, I saw the finale coming. The coffee cup. It was the fucking coffee cup and the airplane.
Coffee cup. The coffee cup, man.
The coffee cup and the airplane. It's just like, how do you let these things slide on such a huge budgeted production? How do you not see that? Do you not have someone in charge?
Was it an airplane or was it a dragon?
It was definitely an airplane.
Was it a coffee cup or was it a chalice?
You know, and I just like don't. I remember my jaw dropping open and my stomach sinking, and it just ruined the fantasy for the show of me. And for me, it's been, I look at the new series so critically that it just hasn't caught on for me. I'm just so indifferent to it. Like, I waited for it all to come out last season before I even watched it. I just, you know, I wasn't like waiting every week for, it's just not great. And I'm like, well, maybe this is one of those HBO things where they're working on character development, but I just haven't felt connected to it. I'm not that interested in it, you know.
Nah, the new show sucks, and not for nothing, the only real spin-off that I was looking forward to, they don't even have it in development anymore, and that would be the Jon Snow story. I kind of wanted to see that, but that isn't even in development anymore. So, yeah, Game of Thrones, was the show great? It was good. It was a good show. It wasn't anywhere near my top 5. But it was a good show. But yes, there were a lot of mistakes, a lot of continuity errors, things like that. I will say, though, that Hannah Waddingham, while she's phenomenal in Ted Lasso, she was really good in that as well, as the lady who screamed shame. But, yeah, Game of Thrones, you know, it is what it is, man. It was cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you did this, but I have other honorable mentions that I just think that should be mentioned because they're just amazing shows on HBO. That I was like, is this one of my favorites? Like, I really like these shows, but top 5 for me. So one of them is Barry. If you ever watch Barry,
Barry is phenomenal.
Great, really great show. Like, it almost made my top 5.
Yeah, Bill Hader's great.
Tales from the Crypt. Do you remember Tales from the Crypt?
Tales from the Crypt was great.
Like, amazing. Like, that was an amazing show. The Tracy Ullman Show. We're both big Simpsons fans, and that was a really funny sketch comedy show.
Yeah, Tracy Ullman Show was cool.
It would have only made my top 5 because of The Simpsons, but...
I feel you. I'm surprised you didn't say Gemstones.
I like The Righteous Gemstones, but I think that Vice Principals and Eastbound and Down are better.
Okay, interesting.
And I just recently watched the premiere of the new Gemstones, and I don't like how they do so much backstory that it diverts from the original story, and it seems like this whole season is going to be just backstory.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I haven't seen the new season.
Did you watch it?
Nah, I haven't seen the new season yet.
It's only one episode. I'm not sure what day it comes out, but I've only seen the first episode, and I don't know. It just isn't. It's not, the dark comedy edge is gone. It's just like a drama now. And so, you do this like big character development like we're talking about in HBO, and then you just start to do all this backstory. And I feel like the whole season is going to be mostly backstory. So I'm just kind of meh.
Got it. Yeah, all right. I got you. Yeah, I can see how that would turn somebody off.
But
right
Danny
now,
McBride, like Eastbound and Down, like that almost made it too. I love that show.
Yeah, I mean, Danny McBride is great, right? So, like he's gonna make you laugh no matter what, right? Even Gemstones, he'll have you laughing. But I could see how, like you said, if it's all backstory and stuff like that, and you're not progressing and advancing the original story, then I'm cool.
Yeah. And then the last few that I just like honorable mentions: True Detective, great show. Dream On, if you remember Dream On.
Wow, Dream On.
You remember that
now
show?
You're throwing it back. Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about it in probably 25 years, but yeah.
Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is we're both Curb fans, but it kind of fell off the last few seasons. That just didn't really interest me.
Kinda is the biggest understatement I've ever heard.
But like the first consecutive seasons, they were great. I think when they tried to revive it, it just didn't hit like it used to.
Correct.
And then Bored to Death. If you remember Bored to Death, I thought that was a great show.
That's what, Schwartzman or whatever his name is?
Yeah, Schwartzman, yep. And what's his name from Cheers?
Ted Danson?
Ted Danson, yeah. And Zach Galifianakis.
Yep. I remember that. I don't know if I gave that too much of a chance. I think I watched like maybe a couple episodes. I don't really fuck with that Schwartzman kid.
It's a good show, but it's definitely like far from my top 10 even.
Yeah, so now you're getting deep into the realms.
Yeah, and then the last one would have to be Fraggle Rock because I love the Muppets and I watched that show religiously as a child, and I'm that old. Yes, it did air when I was a kid.
Funny.
So
that is funny, dude.
But that's all I got for HBO. I mean, they got a lot. I mean, you remember Bangin' in the Rock? Did you ever watch that?
Yeah, of course. Little Rock, of course.
Or High on Crack Street. I mean, like, we could do a whole thing on, like, best docuseries for HBO,
Yeah, we sure could, dude. We sure could. I mean, HBO docuseries, and I mean, like, they're known for that as well. So one day we could get into that as well. Top 5 documentaries from HBO. We'll do that one day for you guys.
But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps us up. That brings us a little past an hour, and I don't got anything else for this week. How about you?
No, my brother, I don't think we got it all.
And just to let everyone know, we are airing an episode every Wednesday now. And
That's right.
We're also recording on Wednesdays, so our episodes will get published a week after and following that chain from now on. So make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube. Make sure you follow us on whatever your preferred network for podcasting is. We're on all the RSS feeds, including Spotify and Apple Music.
That's right.
So
follow the Instagram page, 2 Cynics in a Pod.
Yeah, and make sure you follow at Gotham Green and at Mart Escape Hatch, both on Instagram. And roast our top 5.
And that's it. We'll see you guys next week.
Tell us your top 5, because I'm sure they differ greatly from our top 5. I mean, I don't know.
Definitely
The Wire is tough to beat. Just
hit the comments. Hit the comments and let us know what your top 5 is. We'd love to see it.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I love you, brother. And we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Love you, bro.
All right. Peace.
I'm high pace with a high rise taste. Addicted to the vapors of paper.
Embark in the darkest sins in the hearts of men. Every rapper that rap ain't celebrity.
I'm high pace with a high rise taste. Addicted to the vapors of paper.
Embark in the darkest sins in the hearts of men.